A young Korean soldier named Min-jun had recently been assigned to one of the most respected elite military units in the country. The unit was stationed near a remote mountainous border region where harsh weather, dangerous terrain, and constant military readiness were a part of everyday life. For Min-jun, who had only recently completed his advanced military training, receiving an assignment to such a prestigious unit was both an honor and a challenge. He knew that only the most disciplined and capable soldiers were chosen for this division. The journey to the base itself felt like the beginning of a completely different life. As the military truck climbed through winding mountain roads surrounded by towering peaks and endless forests, Min-jun stared out the window and wondered what awaited him. He had heard stories about the commander of the unit, a man whose name was spoken throughout the military with a mixture of admiration and respect. Commander Hyun-woo was known as a fearless leader who had successfully completed numerous dangerous operations. Soldiers described him as strict, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress. Some even claimed that he expected perfection from everyone under his command. When Min-jun first arrived at the base, he immediately understood why the unit had such a formidable reputation. The atmosphere was completely different from any military environment he had experienced before. Every soldier moved with confidence and purpose. Every task was performed with precision. There was no room for laziness, excuses, or mistakes. The training schedule was intense, beginning before sunrise and often continuing long after sunset. On his very first morning, Min-jun was awakened by the sound of a whistle echoing across the camp. Within minutes, every soldier was assembled outside despite the freezing temperature. Exhausting physical exercises followed, testing strength, endurance, and mental determination. By the end of the day, Min-jun's muscles ached so badly that he could barely stand. Yet when he looked around, the experienced soldiers seemed unfazed by the demanding routine. The first time Min-jun met Commander Hyun-woo face-to-face was during an inspection of the new recruits. The commander stood tall and confident, his uniform immaculate and his expression unreadable. His sharp eyes seemed capable of noticing every detail. As he walked past the line of soldiers, silence filled the air. Nobody dared speak unnecessarily. When Hyun-woo stopped in front of Min-jun, the younger soldier felt his heartbeat quicken. The commander examined him for a brief moment before moving on without saying a word. The interaction lasted only seconds, but it left a lasting impression. There was something about Hyun-woo's presence that commanded respect naturally. He did not need to raise his voice or demand attention. People simply listened because they trusted his leadership and recognized his experience. Over the following weeks, Min-jun focused entirely on proving himself worthy of the unit. Every day brought new challenges. There were mountain patrols that lasted for hours through snow-covered terrain, tactical exercises that pushed soldiers to their limits, and survival training that required them to endure difficult conditions with limited supplies. Min-jun quickly learned that life in the elite unit was far more demanding than anything he had imagined. Mistakes were corrected immediately. Weaknesses were addressed without hesitation. Despite the difficulty, however, he found himself becoming stronger with each passing day. At first, Min-jun viewed Commander Hyun-woo with a mixture of admiration and nervousness. The commander rarely smiled and maintained a professional distance from everyone under his command. During training sessions, he expected complete focus and unwavering discipline. When someone made a mistake, he pointed it out directly and expected improvement. Many new soldiers found him intimidating. Yet as time passed, Min-jun began noticing things that others often overlooked. One evening after a particularly demanding training exercise, a soldier injured his ankle while descending a rocky slope. Most of the team had already begun returning to camp, but Commander Hyun-woo immediately stopped and personally helped the injured soldier. Instead of delegating the responsibility to someone else, he supported the man during the entire journey back. On another occasion, when severe weather forced the unit to remain in temporary shelters for several days, Hyun-woo quietly distributed extra supplies to soldiers who were struggling with the cold. He never sought recognition for these actions. In fact, many went unnoticed because he preferred to focus attention on the team rather than himself. The more Min-jun observed him, the more his perspective changed. Behind the commander's strict exterior was a man who genuinely cared about the well-being of every soldier under his command. Hyun-woo remembered personal details about the members of his unit. He knew who had family difficulties back home, who struggled with certain aspects of training, and who needed encouragement after a disappointing performance. He never expressed his concern through dramatic speeches or emotional conversations. Instead, he demonstrated it through actions. Weeks turned into months, and Min-jun gradually became one of the unit's most dependable soldiers. His dedication earned him occasional praise from the commander, something that felt more valuable than any award. A simple nod of approval from Hyun-woo was enough to motivate him for days. Although he tried not to think too much about it, Min-jun found himself paying increasing attention to the commander's words and behavior. He admired his leadership style, his confidence, and the calm determination he displayed even in difficult situations. One cold winter evening, the unit received orders for a reconnaissance mission in a remote section of the mountains. Snow covered the landscape, and strong winds swept across the cliffs. Visibility was poor, making every step potentially dangerous. The soldiers moved carefully through the frozen terrain while maintaining radio silence. Commander Hyun-woo led the operation from the front, carefully monitoring both the environment and his team. As the mission progressed, conditions became increasingly hazardous. Ice covered many sections of the narrow mountain path, forcing the soldiers to move slowly. Min-jun concentrated on each step, but exhaustion and the darkness made the journey difficult. Suddenly, as he shifted his weight onto what appeared to be solid ground, the ice beneath his boots cracked. Before he could react, his foot slipped. The edge of the path crumbled beneath him, and he felt himself falling toward the steep ravine below. For a terrifying moment, everything happened in silence. Then a strong hand seized his wrist. Min-jun looked up and saw Commander Hyun-woo lying on the icy ground, gripping him with all his strength. Without hesitation, the commander had thrown himself forward to stop the fall. Other soldiers quickly rushed to help, securing ropes and pulling Min-jun back onto stable ground. The entire incident lasted less than a minute, yet it felt much longer. Breathing heavily, Min-jun stared at the commander in shock. Snowflakes drifted through the cold night air as their eyes met. Hyun-woo immediately checked for injuries and asked whether he was capable of continuing. His voice remained calm and professional, but there was undeniable concern in his expression. For reasons Min-jun could not fully explain, that moment affected him deeply. It was not merely gratitude for being rescued. It was something more complicated. As the mission continued, he found it impossible to stop thinking about what had happened. He remembered the determination in Hyun-woo's eyes, the immediate instinct to protect a member of his team, and the reassurance he felt in the commander's presence. From that night onward, Min-jun became increasingly aware of every interaction they shared. He noticed the way Hyun-woo encouraged soldiers after difficult assignments. He noticed the rare moments when the commander allowed himself a faint smile. He noticed the quiet confidence that inspired everyone around him. What had begun as admiration slowly transformed into something deeper. Every conversation felt meaningful. Every shared mission strengthened the connection he felt. Although he did not fully understand his emotions, he knew they were becoming impossible to ignore. Hyun-woo was no longer simply a commanding officer in his eyes. He had become someone whose presence brought comfort, motivation, and happiness. As winter continued and snow blanketed the mountains surrounding the base, Min-jun found himself looking forward to each new day, not because the training had become easier, but because every day offered another opportunity to work alongside the man he respected more than anyone else. Unaware of what the future would bring, he carried these growing feelings quietly within his heart, never imagining that the journey ahead would change both of their lives forever. As the months passed, the bond between Min-jun and Commander Hyun-woo continued to grow in ways neither of them had expected when they first met. Life within the elite military unit remained as demanding as ever. Every day brought new responsibilities, difficult training exercises, and missions that required absolute focus and discipline. Yet amid the constant pressure of military life, a quiet connection gradually developed between them. It was not something dramatic or sudden. Instead, it formed naturally through shared experiences, mutual respect, and countless moments spent side by side. The members of the unit spent most of their time together, often isolated from the outside world by the remote mountain region where they were stationed. Days were filled with training and patrols, while nights were often spent preparing for future operations. The soldiers became like a family, relying on one another for support and survival. Among them, however, the connection between Minjun and Hyunwoo slowly became something unique. One of the things that brought them closer was the long hours of guard duty they occasionally shared. During these assignments, while the rest of the camp slept peacefully, they remained awake beneath the vast night sky. The mountains surrounding the base would stand silent and still, illuminated only by moonlight and distant stars. In those quiet hours, away from the expectations of military life, conversations came naturally. At first, their discussions were simple. They talked about military training, leadership strategies, and the challenges of serving in such a demanding unit. Minjun often asked questions about Hyunwoo's experiences, eager to learn from someone he deeply respected. The commander rarely spoke about himself in public, but during these late-night conversations he seemed more willing to share stories from his past. Hyunwoo spoke about his early years in the military, the mistakes he had made, and the lessons he had learned through experience. He described difficult missions that had tested his courage and moments when he had doubted his own abilities. Hearing these stories surprised Minjun. Like many soldiers in the unit, he had always viewed the commander as almost invincible. Learning that Hyunwoo had faced fears and uncertainties made him seem more human. In return, Minjun shared stories from his own life. He talked about his childhood, his family, and the dreams he had carried long before joining the military. He spoke about his desire to prove himself and his determination to become someone worthy of respect. Unlike many people, Hyunwoo listened carefully whenever Minjun spoke. He never interrupted or dismissed his thoughts. Instead, he paid attention to every detail, offering advice when appropriate and encouragement when needed. As time passed, their conversations became increasingly personal. They no longer discussed only military matters. Instead, they began revealing thoughts and emotions that they rarely shared with anyone else. One particularly cold evening, as snow drifted gently across the camp, Hyunwoo admitted something he had never openly discussed before. Being a commander, he explained, often felt lonely. Everyone respected him, but very few truly understood the burden he carried. Every decision he made affected the lives of the soldiers under his command. Whenever a mission was planned, he worried about their safety. Whenever someone was injured, he blamed himself for not preventing it. Minjun listened silently. For the first time, he realized how much responsibility rested upon the commander's shoulders. Beneath the confidence and authority was a man who constantly carried the weight of protecting others. "You always seem so strong," Minjun said quietly. Hyunwoo smiled faintly. "Being strong doesn't mean never feeling afraid," he replied. "It means continuing forward even when you are." Those words stayed with Minjun long after the conversation ended. Gradually, trust developed between them unlike anything either had experienced before. Hyunwoo found himself speaking more openly around Minjun than anyone else. The younger soldier never judged him or expected perfection. Instead, he offered understanding and genuine support. Likewise, Minjun felt comfortable sharing fears he had hidden for years. He admitted his insecurities about living up to expectations and his fear of disappointing the people who believed in him. Rather than criticizing him, Hyunwoo reassured him that doubt was a natural part of growth. The commander's encouragement became one of the most important sources of confidence in Minjun's life. Other soldiers slowly began noticing subtle changes. Whenever Minjun was nearby, Hyunwoo appeared slightly more relaxed. His normally serious expressions softened during conversations with the younger soldier. Although he remained professional at all times, there was an undeniable comfort in their interactions. The soldiers occasionally exchanged knowing smiles when they noticed the two talking together after training sessions. No one said much about it, but many recognized the unusual trust that existed between them. As months turned into a year, countless shared experiences continued strengthening their bond. They trained together through harsh winters and scorching summers. They endured exhausting marches through difficult terrain. They worked side by side during emergency situations where quick decisions meant the difference between success and failure. Each challenge seemed to bring them closer. One mission in particular left a lasting impact on both of them. The unit was tasked with conducting surveillance near a dangerous section of the border. Conditions were difficult, requiring the soldiers to remain hidden for several days. During that time, they relied heavily on one another. There were long periods of silence broken only by brief conversations. Sitting together beneath camouflage shelters, they shared stories and laughter despite the tension surrounding them. Those moments revealed another side of Hyunwoo that few people ever saw. Away from the responsibilities of command, he possessed a surprisingly dry sense of humor. His rare jokes often caught Minjun completely off guard. Hearing the commander laugh became one of Minjun's favorite sounds. Likewise, Hyunwoo found himself looking forward to Minjun's company. The younger soldier brought warmth and optimism even during difficult situations. His determination inspired those around him, and his presence made challenging days feel slightly easier. Neither of them openly acknowledged how important they had become to one another. Yet the signs were impossible to ignore. Whenever missions separated them, something felt missing. If Hyunwoo was assigned elsewhere for several days, Minjun found himself wondering how he was doing. If Minjun participated in operations away from the base, Hyunwoo often checked for updates more frequently than necessary. Their concern for one another continued growing. What made their connection special was the fact that it had been built slowly and naturally. There was no single moment when everything changed. Instead, affection developed through hundreds of small experiences. A conversation shared beneath the stars. Words of encouragement after a difficult day. A reassuring presence during moments of uncertainty. Quiet companionship during long journeys. Simple acts of kindness that might seem insignificant to others. Together, those moments created something powerful. Over time, both men began realizing that their relationship had become unlike any other friendship in their lives. Neither knew exactly how to define what they were feeling. They only knew that being together brought comfort. Trust came easily. Silence never felt awkward. And no matter how difficult life became, each felt stronger whenever the other was nearby. Without speaking the words aloud, both understood that their connection had become one of the most important parts of their lives. Through shared challenges, laughter, loyalty, and understanding, affection slowly took root in their hearts. It was not a sudden romance born from a single moment of attraction. It was a gradual journey built upon respect, friendship, trust, and genuine admiration. Day by day, month by month, their bond deepened until imagining life without one another became increasingly difficult. Neither could predict what the future would bring, but both sensed that the relationship they had built was leading them towards something neither had ever expected to find. From that night forward, everything between Minjun and Commander Hyunwoo felt different. The confession they had shared beneath the quiet mountain sky did not suddenly transform their lives overnight, nor did it erase the responsibilities that came with military service. Instead, it gave both of them something they had been missing for a very long time: certainty. For months, perhaps even years, they had carried feelings they struggled to understand. Their bond had grown through shared experiences, mutual trust, and countless moments spent side by side. Yet neither had been completely sure whether the other felt the same way. Now that uncertainty was gone. For the first time, both men knew exactly where they stood. What surprised them most was how natural everything felt afterward. There were no dramatic changes in their behavior while on duty. Hyunwoo remained the disciplined commander respected throughout the military. Minjun remained one of the unit's most dependable soldiers. They continued performing their responsibilities with the same professionalism that had always defined them. Yet beneath that professionalism existed something stronger than before. A quiet understanding, a sense of belonging, the knowledge that no matter how difficult life became, neither of them would have to face it alone. Military life continued as it always had. The seasons changed. Winter snow eventually gave way to spring rain. Spring transformed into warm summers, followed by colorful autumns that painted the mountains in shades of gold and red. Through every season, the unit remained active. Training exercises continued. Missions continued. New recruits arrived while experienced soldiers completed their service and moved on. The world around them changed constantly. Yet one thing remained steady: their relationship. As months passed, Minjun became one of the people Hyunwoo trusted most. Not because of rank, not because of military regulations, but because he had proven himself again and again through loyalty, honesty, and unwavering support. Whenever difficult decisions weighed heavily on the commander's mind, Minjun was often the first person he wanted to speak with. Years of leadership had taught Hyunwoo that command could be an incredibly lonely responsibility. A commander carried burdens few people truly understood. Every decision affected lives. Every mission involved risks. Every mistake carried consequences. Many soldiers respected him. Many admired him. But very few knew what it felt like to carry that weight every single day. Minjun understood. He listened when Hyunwoo needed someone to talk to. He offered support without judgment. He never expected perfection. For perhaps the first time in many years, Hyunwoo felt genuinely understood. Likewise, Minjun found strength in the commander's faith in him. Whenever challenges appeared overwhelming, he remembered Hyunwoo's confidence. Whenever doubts threatened to undermine his determination, he remembered the trust the commander placed in him. That trust became one of the most powerful sources of courage in his life. Together they faced countless challenges. Some were physical. Others were emotional. A particularly difficult period came when their unit was assigned a series of demanding operations near the border. The missions required long periods away from base and involved significant risks. Days often passed with little sleep. Harsh weather conditions made even simple tasks exhausting. Despite the difficulties, they supported one another throughout every challenge. During long nights in temporary camps, they often sat together after the rest of the unit had fallen asleep. The conversations they shared during those quiet hours became some of their most treasured memories. Sometimes they discussed future goals. Sometimes they reflected on past experiences. Sometimes they simply enjoyed each other's company while watching distant stars above the mountains. Neither needed constant conversation. Silence between them felt comfortable, peaceful. It was one of the many things that made their relationship special. Over time, other soldiers began noticing the extraordinary understanding they shared. No one knew the full truth about their feelings. Yet many recognized the trust that existed between them. The commander often seemed calmer whenever Minjun was nearby. Likewise, Minjun appeared more confident whenever Hyunwoo was present. They worked together so effectively that people frequently commented on their teamwork. During missions, they anticipated each other's decisions almost instinctively. During training exercises, communication between them often required very few words. Years of working side by side had created an extraordinary connection. One younger soldier once remarked that watching them work together was like watching two people who could understand each other without speaking. Neither Hyunwoo nor Minjun responded to the comment. Yet privately, both knew there was some truth in it. Their connection had grown beyond ordinary friendship. Trust had become second nature. Understanding came effortlessly. And their loyalty to one another remained absolute. As years continued passing, their relationship deepened even further. The excitement of new love gradually transformed into something stronger and more enduring. Their bond became rooted in shared experiences, shared memories, shared sacrifices. Together they celebrated victories. Together they endured disappointments. Whenever one struggled, the other offered support. Whenever one succeeded, the other celebrated sincerely. Neither viewed the relationship as a distraction from military life. Instead, it became one of the greatest sources of strength either had ever known. There were difficult times as well. Life rarely follows a perfect path. Unexpected challenges appeared when least expected. Injuries, losses, mission failures, moments of uncertainty. Yet every obstacle they faced only strengthened their determination to remain together. One winter, a severe storm trapped part of the unit in a remote mountain region. Communication became unreliable. Supplies grew limited. Conditions deteriorated rapidly. For several days, uncertainty surrounded the situation. Although the soldiers remained professional, anxiety spread throughout the camp. During those difficult days, Minjun and Hyunwoo supported not only each other but everyone around them. Their calm leadership helped maintain morale. Their confidence reassured younger soldiers. When the crisis finally ended safely, many members of the unit later admitted that seeing the commander and Minjun remain composed had given them hope. Moments like these revealed an important truth. The strength of their relationship extended beyond themselves. It positively influenced those around them. People trusted them. People respected them. People felt inspired by their dedication. As the years passed, Hyunwoo eventually became one of the most respected commanders in the region. His reputation continued growing throughout the military. Awards and recognition followed. Yet despite his accomplishments, the thing he valued most was not rank or reputation. It was the life he had built alongside Minjun. Success meant little without someone to share it with. Minjun felt the same way. He achieved many personal goals throughout his career. He earned promotions. He gained respect. He became a leader in his own right. Yet whenever he reflected upon the happiest moments of his life, his thoughts always returned to the person who had stood beside him through everything. The mountains where they first met eventually became filled with memories. Every trail reminded them of a training exercise. Every observation post reminded them of long conversations. Every distant horizon reminded them of dreams they had once shared. Those places became symbols of their journey together. Years later, when they looked back on everything they had experienced, neither focused primarily on medals, achievements, or military accomplishments. Instead, they remembered moments. Simple moments. A conversation beneath a sky full of stars. A reassuring smile after a difficult day. Words of encouragement during times of doubt. Quiet evenings spent together after exhausting missions. The countless small experiences that had gradually built a lifetime of trust and affection. In the end, they discovered that courage existed in many forms. People often associated courage with battlefields, danger, and heroic actions. Those things certainly required bravery. Yet there was another kind of courage as well. The courage to trust another person completely. The courage to remain loyal during difficult times. The courage to open one's heart despite uncertainty. The courage to build a future together despite challenges. That kind of courage had shaped their lives just as much as any military mission. Among mountains, military camps, changing seasons, and distant horizons, Minjun and Hyunwoo built something truly meaningful. A relationship founded upon trust. Strengthened by loyalty. Guided by respect. Sustained through years of companionship. And enriched by genuine care for one another. Their journey proved that even within the harshest environments, where discipline and duty often dominated everyday life, the human heart could still find warmth, hope, belonging, and happiness. And as they continued walking forward together, side by side beneath the endless sky, they knew that no matter what challenges awaited them in the future, they would face them as they always had, together.